Hello and welcome to the State of Culture. Celebrating Delhi's century as the country's capital brings back memories of how it all began. New Delhi was the brainchild of Sir Edwin Lutyens, the celebrated British architect who was commissioned to build what became famous as Lutyens Delhi. We take a walk down memory lane with Martin Lutyens, the grandnephew of the architect, who visits a spot frequented by the great man when he was immersed in his creation. Our report. Sir Edwin Lutyens, the architect of New Delhi, was known for imaginatively adapting traditional architectural styles to the style of that particular era. Born in 1869, Lutyens lived till 1944. He has been called the greatest British architect who is best known for his contribution in the design and building of New Delhi when it replaced Calcutta as the seat of the British government. In recognition of his contribution, New Delhi is also known as Lutyens Delhi, even though he did not design any of the bungalows in the Lutyens bungalow zone. He only designed the 4 bungalows in the presidential estate surrounding Rashtrapati Bhavan at Wellington Crescent, now known as Mother Teresa Crescent. Other buildings in Delhi that Lutyens designed include Baroda House, Bikaner House, Hyderabad House and Patiala House. He was also the main architect, along with Herbert Baker, of monuments and buildings such as India Gate and Rashtrapati Bhavan, then known as the Viceroy's House. Born and educated in London, Lutyens built many private homes, official buildings, gardens, churches and war memorials in Britain, Ireland, Canada, Australia and India. His most popular design, perhaps, is Queen Mary's Doll's House, which is now a permanent exhibit in the public area of Windsor Castle. In undertaking his India projects, Lutyens invented a style which came to be known as the Delhi Order and was used by him for several designs in England too. The style was an amalgam of local architectural styles and his classicism, clearly seen in the great drum-mounted Buddhist dome of Rashtrapati Bhavan. The Mughal gardens of Rashtrapati Bhavan were also designed by him, and the model was used for gardens in England too. The front entrance of the building has bells carved into them, which, it has been suggested, Lutyens had designed with the idea that as the bells were silent, the British rule would never come to an end. When composing the plans for New Delhi, Lutyens planned for the new city to lie southwest of the walled city of Shahjahanabad. He also laid out the street plan for New Delhi, consisting of wide tree-lined avenues, which today epitomize Delhi. He based his urbanization scheme on the Mughal water gardens. His love of nature and his tendency to include it in his urban designs has also made him the architect of what is today known as the quintessential English garden. Lutyens was made a Knight Commander of the Order of the Indian Empire, or the KCIE, on 1st January 1930. We're going in for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the State of Culture and a nostalgic trip with Martin Lutyens, chairperson, the Lutyens Trust, and the grandnephew of Sir Edwin Lutyens, the architect of New Delhi. Accompanying him is collector-designer Nimmi Khanna. Martin Lutyens, chairperson of the Lutyens Trust, an educational trust, and grandnephew of Sir Edwin Lutyens, visited New Delhi and retraced his grand-uncle's steps to his favorite hotel, where he occasionally stayed and worked while designing the new capital. And we followed him. As you can see, Martin got a grand welcome, much as his uncle would have almost a century ago. He climbed the same stairs and settled on the same bed that his uncle may have rested his tired limbs on after a hard day's work.
Room 416, the Oberoi Maidens Hotel.
Edwin Lutyens' bed.
Yes. Was it year 1911?
I'm not certain of that, but he would certainly have been here by 1912.
And he wasn't knighted, right?
Not at that point, no. That came later on in recognition, at least, well, I would think significantly because of his work here.
And was he alone in this bedroom? Can I ask that?
Certainly for most of his visits here, he would have been alone. I suspect that his wife did accompany him sometimes, but he often travelled alone because she was often travelling on her own theosophist trips to other places.
And drawings, his creativity?
He would be drawing and redrawing and committing his ideas to paper all the time, thinking. He was a great sketcher of his ideas. He found it easier to draw and to sketch his ideas than to describe them in words.
And was he a smoker?
Oh, was he a smoker? He smoked a series of small pipes. And one of the things about him was that he always, as I understand it, tended to look rather untidy because he had one pocket full of a notebook, pencils, rubbers, a penknife to sharpen his pencils with, and in the other pocket he would have 4 or 5 small pipes, matches, tobacco. So you can imagine, even if he started off with a smart-looking suit, it pretty soon began to look a bit bulgy.
How does it feel to be in his bed?
Well, it's absolutely marvellous. I feel that he's spirits here. He's probably up there making one of his many, many jokes. I hope it's a nice one. There was one occasion when he was invited to dinner by the Viceroy's wife. It was Lady Reading at the time, I believe, and he forgot to turn up. And of course that was a terrible thing to do, and he wrote a letter of apology, and in his letter he wrote, "Fain would I wash your feet with my tears and dry them with my hair. Sadly, I have very little hair, but then you have very little feet." So, you know, that was typical of his light touch and his humour.
Great.
He was a very human man, and he found it very difficult to relate to the rather grandiose environment that he found here. So he covered up his discomfort by making jokes and making funny remarks. And I think some people found them, particularly the more serious people, found them quite difficult to live with. But that's the way he protected himself.
The grandnephew is looking quite a Maharaja on that bed.
Yes, well, I'm having a wonderful time here in Delhi. Everybody's being so sweet to me, especially you, and I'm feeling like a Maharaja.
Yeah, tell us something about his relationship with his wife, Emily. We're in the bedroom, so it's a very obvious question.
Well, I think talking about his bedroom is possibly a touchy subject. His wife was never very fond, as I understand it, of making love, and having provided him with 5 children, I think she pretty much shut up shop. And in any event, she had adopted the Theosophist creed and spent a great deal of her time with the Theosophists in Australia, America. I think some would have it that she was in love with Krishnamurti, who was the sort of central figure in the sect, or call it what you will. I know quite a bit about that from the books that her daughter Mary wrote about those times, because Mary was involved with her mother, and all her mother's Theosophist activities tended to keep her out of Edwin's bedroom. She just wasn't there. I think he was very lonely. He loved her dearly, but my goodness, she put him through it with all of that stuff.
For lunch, Martin ate Sir Edwin's favourite Indian soup, the mulligatawny, which was cooked to perfection for his distinguished descendant. That's all, folks, in this episode. We will return same time next week with another celebration, this time of a famed educational institution. Till then, goodbye.